Hey everyone, it's Bertoblitz and welcome to my Elder Scrolls Online Tamriel Unlimited Healing Beginners Tips. This video is meant for brand new people to the game thinking of healing their first dungeon. Even if you're an MMO veteran, you will find that healing in this game is very different to what you find in other games. Anyways, you won't find any advanced tips in here, and this is definitely not a guide. It is purely meant for a brand new player thinking about healing. So, let's get started. For the first tip, pick your race. Personally, I'm not a min-maxer and I don't really care about races in MMOs because they aren't usually very important. Well, here in ESO, you might want to consider your races a bit more carefully as they do affect your stats. Each race has their own passive skill line and some will help you on your road to healing. So we're going to jump to the character creation screen and give you guys some tips on which races you can choose for each faction to maximize your healing output. You don't really need to do this to be able to heal effectively, but these races really do help your healing output. Hey guys, welcome to the character select screen, and now we're going to be looking at the races for healing. So let's start off with the Daggerfall Covenant. So for the Daggerfall Covenant, your main healing race will be Bredens. Bredens have an increased light armor experience gain and reduced magicka cost for spells. They also have increased spell resistance to add some extra survivability in fights when you're wearing light armor, as well as increased magicka with Gift of Magnus. Now, the next race is the High Elf. Personally, I don't think it's as good as the Breden with its passives because it doesn't focus on magicka as much. The first passive they have is really on the destruction staff, and after that they have another elemental talent. But then their last two passives, pretty significant. They have, just like the Bredens, increased magicka by 10%, and what Bredens don't have is increased magicka recovery while in combat by 9%. So if you don't want to play Bredens and you want to play on the Aldemir Dominion, High Elf or Altmer is definitely what you want to be going for. Now for the last race, this race definitely isn't as good as the other two mentioned, but if you really want to be in the Ebonheart pack and you don't have the Imperial Edition, then I would recommend Argonian, because out of Dark Elf and Nord, Argonian is the only one which gives some passives which help in healing. They have an increased experience gain with the Restoration Staff, so I guess that's useful while leveling up. They also do have an increased healing received by 6%, but they don't really, other than that, there's nothing really major about the class which sets it apart as a healing race. So that's it, and let's move on to the next part of the video. So now, moving on to the second tip, here you have another very basic tip in terms of classes. Many people wonder if they really need to play Templar to heal, as they have their own class healing line, and they're usually the healers which you can see used in trials. This is basically a yes and kind of answer. If you don't really care about trials and doing the hardest content, and you really don't want to play Templar because, it just doesn't look cool to you, then you don't need to. The Nightblade, Dragon Knight, and Sorcerer can all heal using a Restoration Staff, and they do have their own class abilities which they can use to help out their group. The Dragon Knights, for example, are great for buffing your allies. The Nightblade can use funnel health, and the Sorcerer has great resource management. So now, if endgame is what you're going for and you want to do the best content, a Templar is your best bet. If you plan on pugging and playing with some random groups, you definitely should do this, as they are almost always asking for a Templar. When you see a group in zone chat calling out that they need a Templar, this basically translates into they need a healer most of the time. With your guild and or friends, any class will do as long as you can really use it effectively, as the Templar is the most straightforward healer compared to the other classes. If you're brand new but you want to know how to heal and you want to just get a taste of healing, I would definitely pick a Templar. Alright, so for the final tip, number 3, don't be a heal bot. Alright, this tip is related directly to healing in your first dungeon. If you have played other MMOs before the Elder Scrolls Online, and you have played a healer, you know that in other MMOs, healers only heal, and they tunnel vision on the group's health bars. Don't do this in ESO. Healing in this game is very different. First off, there are no targeted heals. You won't be clicking on someone's health bar to heal them. Heals in this game work very differently in a smart cast sort of way, with the grand majority being AoE heals. Single target heals will focus on the player with the least amount of health. Think of a healer as a support class in this game. Yes, your priority is to keep everyone alive in your group, but your other priority should be to try and make that dungeon run as smooth as possible. Healers don't play whack-a-mole with their health bars to keep themselves entertained during a dungeon. Don't be a healing bot. In the background, you can see me healing Wayrest Sewers, which is the second Daggerfall Covenant dungeon. And on my bars, you will see heals as well as utility spells. On my main healing bars, I keep a spell which increases your group's damage. I see a lot of healers make the mistake of only using healing spells in a dungeon. If everyone's health is fine, use your utilities, even switch to your damage bar and do some damage. In ESO, you have 2 bars when you reach level 15. I would recommend to keep one as your healing bar with some very important utilities and your heals, and the second being your main damage bars with damage and other utilities. Damage? I hear you saying? Yes, being a healer doesn't make your damage any less than focusing on damage as a DPS. We can't output as much damage because of our magicka. It's not because of our spells, because we do have these spells to do a good amount of damage. In other games, healers have access to some shitty, crappy starting skills, which are really bad and shouldn't be used. But here, we have access to any damage abilities we like. This is what makes healing so much fun in this game. Occasionally, you will see me switching to my other bar and doing some damage trying to debuff the boss in the game. It helps out your group, and you should be doing so. There's a spell in the destruction line which will place a debuff on the boss, allowing your group to do more damage. You have a lot more to handle here as a healer, and you feel much more like a true healer. Optimize your dungeon run, and people will love you for it. Alright, that concludes my basic healing tips for the Elder Scrolls Online. That last one was pretty long and gave me some trouble speaking it all out, but it definitely is the best piece of beginner advice I can give to anyone thinking of becoming a healer. As I said at the beginning of the video, this was a very basic guide. I don't want any veteran healers trying to put down the video just because it is not meant for them. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed these healing tips. Subscribe to the channel for more ESO content coming up. You'll see dungeon runs, more guides, and maybe a first impression of this Imperial City DLC when that comes, as well as a tanking beginner's tips guide. Anyways, I hope you guys all enjoyed the video.